Welcome back to the Unhinged History Podcast with me, your unhinged host, Taniberlo. As always, on today's episode, which again, I haven't named yet. You will know the name because you would have just clicked on it. I haven't decided. Either it's going to be Ain saying he is a gold digger, or treasure riots and the lust for whole. Probably the first one. Anyway, so what we're going to be talking about today is the fascination with early America and treasure hunting. It's pretty interesting, to be honest. I promise it's interesting. We will make it interesting. If you want to learn about some of the infamous, maybe not so much, treasure diggers, a little bit about Benjamin Franklin, a little bit about lust for holes, stick around. Let's keep the music. Before we get started, I'd like to thank today's sponsor, which is me, myself, and I. Again, still to this, at this point. Caesar Archivum is my jewelry brand. I'm wearing the silver. I'm usually a gold gal, but I put the silver on yesterday and I was like, ooh, who designed this? I think I've cracked that same joke like 3 times over, so I really apologize about that. But yeah, that helps if you want to buy your mum a piece of jewelry. Yep. Other ways to support the channel is just giving it a like, a share, a subscribe. And we now have memberships, which is super cool. So you can click become a member on here, and that will get you a few perks, little insider information, but mainly it will get you access to my Discord server. So that is where we chit chat, shoot the shit, and we do a private live. We call it Thirsty Thursday because the Americans, it's Thursday for them, Friday morning for me. They have a little drink and I have some coffee, and we just have fun on there. So if you would like to be a part of that community, you can become a member. Anyway, moving on to the topic at hand. So I literally wrote this: grab your shovels and let's get started. That's terrible. Anyway, I'm going to start the podcast episode with this. It's a quote from Benjamin Franklin. That guy, the one that's on the money in America, that fella. This is his quote. He that is of the opinion money will do everything may well be suspected for doing everything for money. He was not wrong. And basically, I lead with this quote because it encapsulates everything I'm going to talk about. He was the kite-flying, bifocal wearing founding father of America. Have you seen National Treasure? I have. It's one, I can't watch movies. I have ADHD. I'm an iPad kid, like a grown one that has responsibilities. Anyway, so he's a smart guy, Brent. He's not silly, but he was like, hey, so there's a whole bunch of you people that are really obsessed with digging for treasure, really obsessed, and it's weird. That was ad-libbed. This is actually what he said. The diggers after money dig for much more than they get, sinking themselves into debt and poverty and disease, borrowing from all they meet, are beholden to none, and serving all they deal with, and paying but when they please. That was poorly executed, the quote, because he speaks in 1700 English. Anyway, the point is that we've spoken about financial scams before. In the tulip episode, we spoke about mania, right? Yeah, the digging for treasure in early America was one of those. And in 1729, Benjamin Franklin wrote a whole ass article on it, being like, guys, it's a fugazi, you know what I'm saying? It's a wazi, it's a woozy, it's a... So, anyway, according to the book, The History of Magic Books, A guy named Owen Davis writes this book, and pretty much, okay, so just a snapshot, right? Maybe in Europe or like other places where, I don't know, the Romans conquered things. They had like old buildings and stuff like that. When white people colonized America, there was just like, I don't know, like they just thought that they would find secret cities, Atlantis, and especially buried treasure with gold in it. It just became like this thing. Everyone thought that was going to happen. And they'd make up all these stories about literally all sorts of things. Colonial America had its fair share of treasure-seeking mania, okay? That could have been summarized with one sentence. The allure of buried treasure. It was strong, right? At the same time, like, I get the whole gold rush thing, but again, a lot of people lose out in those moments. It's just like the tulips. It's just like Dogecoin, really. It's like a Ponzi scheme, an MLM. Anyway, everyone was like bustling around, digging holes, trying to find treasure. Now, at this point in time, it's pretty important to understand that people really had a different way of viewing the world. A lot of people had a different way of viewing the world. Science was, we're talking about 1700s, right? So like science was second to probably the major religion being Christianity, I assume. I don't know, I just pulled that fact out of nowhere. I guess, but folk magic was like a big part of, especially, I guess, like the common class. Magic, folk tales, all sorts of things. Also, keep in mind that like 100 years later this is the Egyptomania period. This is like whenever, like all these churches started popping up. It wasn't just America that was doing this. Of course, England was doing it as well. It's pretty comical, really. There's a lot of potholes going on. People digging holes. And Benjamin Franklin was like, hey, can everyone stop digging up the countryside and literally making holes everywhere? If you could do that, would just be great. So that's 1700s, okay? It became illegal to treasure hunt. Just like it's illegal to run a Ponzi scheme. Just like it's illegal to run an MLM, pyramid scheme. But do people get around it and still do it? Absolutely they do. So that's what happened. And it's pretty interesting. When things become illegal, people just become far more creative to just do the illegal thing. So anyway, let's fast forward a little bit to about the 1800s. Again, people in this period were pretty interested in magic, or we call it magic, but I guess they would just have probably taken it as fact. So there were people that worked as diviners, right? Think about like people buying a farm, right? They need water. So they would hire someone in the community that was the like town water diviner, right? And they'd come in and they'd use particular items. They call it water witching or dowsing. And in these magical objects, it helps the water diviner find water. There was people that did this for a whole ass living, right? But then there was a group of people that were like, if it can find water, actually, let me just quickly reverse a little bit. Eric A. Allison explains, in frontier America, seer stones or peep stones were commonly used used by lost object finders, people engaged in the widespread practice of lost treasure digging, and sometimes by people seeking to uncover the kind of truths that we might call a private or police detective for the day. Again, it's like people at this time as well, like visions were really common amongst townspeople. There was a lot of religious excitement, a lot of people having visions. So these people that would have these visions would claim to see the lost objects under the ground by using a peep stone in a hat, by using like blocking out all the light around their faces so that they could like have a vision properly. And like that was like the concept, if you will. Now, these magical objects are embedded, the ideas are embedded in the literature of the time, right? The folk literature, which to this day we still have. So something like Snow White, right? Or what's that thing called? I haven't seen The Lord of the Rings. Can you believe that? But you know how they look into the mirror or they look into the crystal ball and they see the things. So from colonial times, so from about 1776, which again is quite a way after Benjamin Franklin, the last character we were speaking about, through to 1837, Americans definitely dug for magical treasure. There were probably hundreds of thousands of these gold diggers, fabled coins. We're in our snake oil period too. People would sell like mummies. This is where people literally went mad for things from like Egypt. It's all kind of intertwined, you know what I'm saying? Like they'd sell, a dude would literally go to Egypt, steal like mummified human beings, and then put them on the back of a wagon and then go and sell them to people. And then they would eat them. Like they'd literally grind them up and eat them. Because I don't know why, but they also had a paint called Mummy Brown. They made a paint out of it. That's got nothing to do with the topic, but it comes to mind. It's this period of time, okay? You know what I'm saying? Was there lead in the water? I don't know. Was everyone on mushrooms? It would make more sense if they were, but I don't know. That was an ad lib. Anyway, so people that were water diviners would often use like rods, again, a stone. But then when it comes to the treasure stuff, they would typically use what's called a peep or a seer stone, which is a stone that shows you things. But yeah, sorry, I don't mean to laugh. I'm like trying to laugh at history, but sometimes you just can't help but laugh. So treasure diggers would, again, sell their services to others. So this is where the issue comes. Treasure finders would sell their services to like their friends and family, being like, I had a vision, I can find treasure on your land, pay me. So they pay, and they don't find anything because there was no treasure. You know what I'm saying? So that was like the issue, right? So people would get really bad reputations if they were a gold digger. And that's insane. She's a gold digger. Yeah. So it wasn't like, to be called like a treasure hunter became pretty much an insult, because it's like being like, oh, I'm I don't know, con artist. That was a bad example. No, yeah, it's kind of like the con artist, right? So, oh, he's a treasure digger. I want to talk about the methodologies first, and then we'll talk about some individuals. Let's say old mate over here is hired by Bob over there to actually dig the treasure that they have foreseen in their vision. It was like an operation. It wasn't just like a shovel. Insert picture of some of these tunnels. There's a miner's hill that happened. Anyway, big holes. And anyway, so during the digs, they had these various rituals that they would perform. Because again, magic was happening. Now, the rituals, typically speaking, were to appease the spiritual guardians, the spirit guardians. Keep in mind, colonial America, like white America, okay? When the dig would ultimately fail, because it was all a lie, they would then say something was done wrong, like the ritual, oh, it was done wrong, so the slippery treasure sunk deeper into the ground. Obviously, pretty much. So animal sacrifice. Animal sacrifice was used. Do you know what's hilarious to me? Is that the way that people would vilify other cultures, and even to this day, vilify other cultures for animal sacrifice and etc., etc. Yet Americans were doing it too, and people from England. Anyway, so an animal was sacrificed to appease these guardian spirits of the treasure in these digs. And when these rituals would happen, there was definitely, like, dogs were usually used. Every single gold digger or treasure digger had their own kind of flavor. Here is a quote from someone called Hill Lewis. The facts are that the sacrifice of white dogs, I can't say that word because it is racist, I think. Black cats, what the heck? Okay, that got really dark very quickly. And such was like an indispensable part or appendage of which the supernatural power of the second sight was used to see things at a distance and deep underground. There were frequent references to the enchantment. They were seen in communities as like conjurers, sorcerers. Anyway, all right, we'll leave it there. So if you are one of my followers that is still an active believing member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I would suggest to maybe either move forward with caution. I will be polite, but I will be giving actual history. Because obviously the character that we're going to talk about is Joseph Smith, because he was a treasure hunter. Let us begin with the fact. I'm going to be referencing Ronald W. Walker, who was the director of Western Studies at BYU. So it's a BYU professor. So I'm not going to be savage. I'm just presenting the facts because he is just a really good example of this particular phenomenon. Just one. Again, there was hundreds of thousands of these treasure hunters, but he is there's a lot more known about him because there's a whole Mormon church today. That's all based on him finding. Anyway, basically, where do I begin? Okay, so Ronald W. Walker, again. Americans dug for magical treasure. This is a quote. I said this before, hundreds of thousands of these money diggers, all seeking troves of fabled coins, mines, jewels, other valued prizes. The money diggers placed faith in conjuring elemental spirits, thrice-spoken dreams, Siric gifts, and enchanted treasure. A second treasure-finding device that was used was the seer stone. Skipping ahead, New York practitioner found his stone lying in the road. The dazzling splendor of this 3 or 4 inch piece of quartz caused him to fall down insensible. Joseph Smith's various stones reportedly included a smooth grey egg-shaped rock found in a neighbor's, a second which he reportedly dug up near Lake Erie after espying it in his neighbor's stone, and still others collected from the Mississippi River. Many stones, many hats. That was a good joke, whatever. So, yeah, basically, prior to Joseph Smith founding the Mormon Church, he was a treasure finder, professional. And so there was a few digs that he was, I guess, contracted to do, would be maybe the term, by friends and family. And so during the dig, Joseph would ritually sacrifice dogs. A quote from Hill Lewis, who was on the dig site. It's hard to believe that men of common intelligence could believe Smith could thus see and believe in his conjuration, be so foolish as to spend thousands of dollars. Keep in mind, this is the 1800s. Thousands of dollars is a lot of money. But Smith translated his Book of Mormon mostly with the same peep stone and hat, and it is just as hard to believe in this inspired translation as to believe in the efficiency of dog sacrifices. This guy's savage. Smith translated the Book of Mormon by means of the same peep stone and under the same inspiration that directed his enchantments and dog sacrifices. It was all by the same spirit. You can find that in early Mormon documents by Dan Vogel, Volume 4, sections 308 to 309. Now, another recollection of a treasure dig on Joseph Knight's farm, another Joseph, two different guys. Joseph Smith was the one doing it, Joseph Knight was the client. For in the time of their digging for money and not finding it attainable, Joe Smith good old Joe, told them there was a charm on the pots of money. And if an animal was killed and blood sprinkled around the place, then they could get it. So they killed a dog. And they tried this method of obtaining the precious metals, but again, money was scarce in those diggings. Still they dug and never came to the precious treasure. Alas, how vivid was the expectation when the blood of poor Trey, I assume that was the name of the dog, was used to take off the charm, and after all, to find their mistake, that it did not speak better things than that of Abel. Okay, that's going off track. Another dog was killed as well. I'm not sure what her name was, but she was a girl. So basically, someone named D. Michael Quinn, who was excommunicated from the Mormon Church for writing about Joseph Smith and his worldview of like magic or the spiritual realm, the way that he saw the world, in his book called Early Mormonism and the Magic Worldview. The official version, he says this, the official version of early Mormon history is often incomplete in its presentation of material facts and evaluation of evidence. The Smith family's folk belief, treasure digging ventures, and their effect on Mormon revelation are perhaps the most troubling topics for Mormon apologists, because it was denied for 100 years that they were ever treasure diggers, but they were. There's so much fact. And yeah, like this is conveniently polished over. You don't know this stuff. If you're a member, you don't get told this stuff. Anyway, I don't want this overview to get too long, but there was a guy named Martin Harris. Now, what I didn't know about Martin Harris is he also had visions in the middle of the night, and his dog would talk to him and tell him to do things. There was a company in the neighborhood, and I forgot to mention something actually, which was that I'm pretty sure it's like Joseph Smith Sr., his dad, like collected all this money to buy this like Chinese ginseng, and the boat sunk or something. Anyway, you can look that up. Google's free. So where am I up to? Martin Harris, pretty sure when blah blah blah. That's boring. The point is, we're illustrating that Joseph Smith was a treasure digger before he became a prophet, whatever. Anyway, so he gets trialed in 1826. Because remember, treasure digging is illegal for a reason. Because it's a scam. Anyway, so in the 1826 trial, Joseph was trialed because he conducted at least 18 treasure digs between 1822 and 1827. And in 1826, you heard that right, he was put on trial for his treasure digs that was funded by Josiah Stowell. The case was brought by Stowell's nephew, Peter Bridgman, because he was watching Joseph's methods in being the seer of the money digging party, and he brought the complaint to the court. And Mr. Stonewall is represented as being a not very bright man, but he had saved considerable money for those times, and Joe Smith managed to get and spend most of it. Again, Early Mormon Documents, Volume 4, Section 153. This trial record is important for many reasons, but it illustrates that, yeah, he did do the things that they say he did. LDS scholars and apologists, like i.e. Hugh Nibley, declared the book, like the court record of this trial, to be completely fake. But it wasn't. Yeah, we know, and we have the records of Constable Philip M.D. Zhang's bill invoice for the trial that includes 10, but can also be read as 16, miles travel to take with him. That's in the Joseph Smith papers. I'm going to give a summary of just Joseph Smith, and then after that I'm going to give a summary of the treasure digging as like a whole concept. It's a bit weird to me, personally, that knowing the depth of which this treasure digging actually went, and the poor bloody dogs that were killed, then having that guy who'd been to court for conning people claim he had a vision that God told him that he was the one and true prophet, and to go and to go and dig in a hill for gold plates, which then he was able to translate via a peepstone in a top hat. And no one saw the plates. And before anyone comes at me about the witnesses, they saw them covered on a table. Also, when you see something, you can also see it with your spiritual eyes. And then in that translation that was done, it says, "He curseth your riches that become slippery, that ye cannot hold them, and in the days of your poverty ye cannot retain them. Yea, we have hid up our treasures, and they have slipped away from us because of the curse of the land." That's an excerpt from Helaman 13 in the Book of Mormon. So there's no way around the fact that Smith's worldview influenced every aspect of Mormonism. It's just that we have this disconnection in the actual history versus like the story today. Anyway, I'm gonna pivot from that and just like talk about, I guess, what can we learn here? We can learn a few things. Mania. Sign up to this course to make a quick buck. It's still around today. Like, how many people get scammed into pyramid schemes or like cryptocurrency schemes where people are like, I can teach you to make thousands of dollars in a day, and then they pay thousands of dollars and then lose all their money. The elephant in the room is potentially religion. It's not, it's very much in the room. I think the elephant gives the room quite a nice touch. Because if we look at where the Mormon funds are going, they aren't going to charity. They never were. They're going into the pockets of gold diggers. And with that, I end this podcast with, he was a gold digger. I am saying it because the history shows. Anyway, citations in the bottom. Go hard. This one I might get a lot of controversy over. Peace out. That's fine with me. I don't really care. Love to see it. Would love it if you subscribed. Liked, shared, whatever. Yeah. See you next time on Unhinged History. Bye.